So the first I was made aware of rapid onset gender dysphoria, which is what you write about in your book, was a study from Brown. It was a preliminary study that was put out talking about this phenomenon that you're talking about. Groups of young girls who were sort of they were all experiencing discomfort in various ways and for various different reasons. And one girl would then suggest, well, I'm actually transgender. And then many of the girls would suddenly decide that they were transgender as well. And this was put out by a scholar at Brown University. And Brown immediately walked back the study and then apologized for ever having put out the study in the first place. What's been your experience with censorship now that you've actually talked openly about this phenomenon?
From the moment I got a publisher, there was a campaign to have my book dropped by my publisher, to have my publisher drop me as a client and then as an author. Then, of course, when my book was coming out, Amazon, refused to sponsor ads for the book. So Amazon refused to allow my publisher, rather, to sponsor ads. Then journalists, all kinds of top journalists, wanted to review the book because it's an interesting topic. There is, you talk to most parents and you ask them if they have middle school students, they know that all of a sudden, all their kids, friends, a huge number of them are trans, and they want to know why. And it's an interesting topic, so a lot of people wanted to review it. And all the major newspapers and magazines told them, absolutely not, we are not touching this book. And then Joe Rogan had me on, which was wonderful, and Spotify employees threw a fit, and they demanded that the episode be stripped from his platform, and he's stood up to them, and so has Spotify, which has really been a huge victory against cancel culture. But you see what they had to go through. And then most recently, Target.com stripped my book from being available for purchase.
I mean, it is pretty incredible. I mean, we've seen people like Chase Strangio, who is a trans justice advisor over at the ACLU, calling for your book to be banned because the American Civil Liberties Union is no longer the American Civil Liberties Union. It is actually just a left-wing interest group that is fully fine, apparently, with shutting down civil liberties up to and including censorship of particular tracts they don't like. So what is the reason that a lot of these people say that they are trying to ban your book or censor your book is because of the suggestion that it somehow threatens the safety of trans people. And we get this in a wide variety of settings. We saw this with Senator Tom Cotton writing an op-ed about the use of the Insurrection Act to put down rioting and looting in major cities, and the New York Times staffers saying that this threatened their safety somehow, and the New York Times op-ed editor, James Bennett, being canned on that basis. This constant call that things I don't like threaten me has been carried pretty far, particularly with regard to trans issues. The idea being that if you don't use someone's preferred pronoun, you should be barred from social media because you might be dead naming them and this threatens their safety. What do you make of the arguments that books that question the reality of the diagnosis of gender dysphoria, not overall, but in particular cases, threaten people's safety?
I think that the reason that this issue engenders such extremist response is because they know that if word gets out what teenagers are doing, that most Americans will be so horrified that it will be shut down. I mean, right now, a teenager can walk into a clinic at 15 and without her parents' permission, after being goaded by her therapist, her teachers, and social media influencers, she can go into a clinic on her own, walk out that day with a course of testosterone, a Schedule 3 controlled substance, and forever alter her body. And she doesn't even need a therapist note. And so I think the hysteria is really because this isn't a right or left issue, to the extent that most of the parents who call me are politically progressive, but universally Americans are horrified as soon as they learn about what's going on.
It seems like there's obviously an attempt not just to shut down you, but also even parents who are asking questions about their own kids' activities. Parents are being shamed by social media. Their own kids are saying that you're a bad parent if you refuse to allow me to go get a testosterone treatment. Or parents who say that we ought to engage in watchful waiting are labeled transphobes. If you have a 2-year-old and your 2-year-old goes to school, I foresee a future here where there are going to be child protective services calls being made if your kid goes to school, says they're a member of the opposite gender, and then you say at home, no, you're not, and the kid goes to school and tells a teacher. I think Child Protective Services shows up sometime in the next 5 years, given the way the trends are moving.
That's already happening. And in fact, this is probably the most egregious example of gaslighting today, is what's happening to these parents. So they will have this is such a horror to parents because they're being lied to and backstabbed by everyone. So the teachers will lie to their faces about what's going on at school. They'll let the child rename himself and let him use the opposite sex bathrooms, never telling the teacher that they've officially changed him or her with regard, within the school. The therapists lie to the parents. The social workers interfere. The doctors will supply medicine without the parents' permission. I mean, these parents are so attacked, and as you said, their friends consider them transphobes and whatever. I mean, the sanctity, autonomy, and integrity of the family is so under assault on this issue. And I have had calls from parents who say, I'm terrified of losing custody, but listen, I know my kid. I only spent, 100,000 hours raising her. I know her. I'm a political progressive, but this doesn't seem right. It came out of nowhere. And I'm supposed to trust the judgment of a therapist who spent one 45-minute session with her and claims to know her better than I do? It's really horrifying what's going on.
I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Ben Shapiro Show Sunday Special. If you did, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you stay up to date on all our future content.